So hi everyone, I'm Katie. I'm one of the co-organizers of this event. And so yeah, thank you all for coming. This is really exciting. I am also the founder of Real Soul, and so we'll have sort of a small shop over there. I do education-based curriculum that focuses on art and how to tell Asian American stories. And so this is part of um, those efforts and just making sure that our neighborhoods are continuously progressive and making sure that they're also very inclusive for everyone. And I'm gonna toss it over to Francis, who is also the co-organizer, to tell us a little bit about Teach-Ins.
Sure. Actually, could you just say something about being from the Sunset?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I grew up in the Sunset. I grew up in the inner Sunset specifically. I went to Wame School, and then I went to Alice Wong U. So those are both efforts of basically people who have grown up in Chinatown or from the area and have really made a difference in those spaces. The Sunset has been known for being very progressive, and is starting to struggle a little bit with that as well, due to changing demographics and education not always being passed on to your neighbors or to the next generation. So yeah, so I'm hoping that the Sunset continues to be very progressive, and can be a role model for a lot of other districts too.
Yeah, so this event, I guess I would consider this, well, we're placing it in the tradition of teach-ins, which is back in the day, at the beginnings of Asian American consciousness movement. It was just not just among Asian Americans, but everybody in the society. People were actually looking for ways to learn that wasn't, because our lives and experience wasn't in the classroom. It wasn't represented in the classroom. And so the precursors of ethnic studies was people just organizing ways to learn just in the public space. And in fact, over at San Francisco State, there was, during the strike, there was actually a college that the strikers organized to teach the things that were not being represented in the classroom and needed to be in the classroom eventually, which eventually became ethnic studies. So, but the whole idea of the teach-ins are kind of creative activities. It's not just about, because we used to have this idea of critique of like the process of education could be a little stiff. And so the idea of kind of it being community, kind of have a community feeling, have some kind of everybody get involved in some creative activity, have some food, but also the idea of like building a movement. And so I think, to Gordon's campaign's credit, this idea is not just about winning the election, but actually building the movement and making the basis for the future of this neighborhood or our society, because I'm sure you all know about how much is at stake in this particular election. So, so that's the idea of kind of keeping going these cultural, threads of how we as a community learn, how we build our relationships with each other. And a big part of it is telling our stories. And so that's kind of what we thought this would be a nice opportunity to hear from Gordon. I mean, everybody's really busy in this campaign, but I think it's we owe a lot to you to this willingness to share of yourself today.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Francis and Katie, for organizing this this gathering. And I have to say, so yeah, I'm up for re-election right now, and in next week, finally it'll be over, this campaign, in 4 or 5 more days. And so we've just been working hard in the re-election campaign, running a real grassroots sort of volunteer-based people-powered campaign for about 5 or 6 months now. So it's been very intensive, exhausting, and for me, it's on top of my regular work as as a member of the Board of Supervisors representing the Sunset. So it's been very exhausting. But we've had a few events here at the campaign office for the campaign that haven't been so much just about calling voters or knocking on doors and getting out there, but they've been more community building events. Like we had a really nice art event actually, and also a Halloween event we had. And there's still some remnants of those two events on the walls here. But this event tonight, thank you guys. I mean, this is a little different than, right, Vanessa, than what we're usually doing here in the office, just calling people. So really appreciate this opportunity to share a little bit about my background and my connection to the Sunset and be able to talk about the Sunset, but also about the issues and facing everyone in our city right now, and the challenges, and no matter where you live and where you come from. So just a bit about my background. So I'm just finishing up my first term as a member of the Board of Supervisors representing District 4, which is pretty much the Sunset District. I have the district that's District 4 that's probably the most easily identifiable with all of the 11 supervisorial districts, because the Sunset's, it's pretty much equal to the Sunset. That's been kind of nice. But before that, I had worked as a community and a labor organizer with progressive groups for about 25 or 30 years in the city. And I started, actually, even before that, just to take a little bit further, I was born and raised in Sacramento, working class Asian American family. My parents were mostly state government workers for most of their life, just like a lot of my friends. But in Sacramento, I did grow up sort of in a community pretty similar to the Sunset District. It was very suburban sort of family, Asian American, a lot of Chinese and Japanese Americans, second and third generation. So I grew up kind of in an Asian American community in Sacramento, working class families, and I think that kind of shaped me. And then I came out to college at UC Berkeley around 30 years ago in the 80s, and I think it was when I came to Berkeley in the Bay Area that I started to become more like a lot of people, first time more politically aware, politically active on campus, and then eventually in the community. And I think that's when I started first knowing Francis and Julie, in political work, student work, and then when I graduated from Berkeley, I moved to San Francisco and just started doing community organizing work here, and with the Chinese Progressive Association, mainly as an organization. And I was the first paid organizer at CPA. I think back around 1990 was when I started, and eventually was executive director of CPA for many years, and worked closely with Francis on a lot of, and Julie as well, a lot of progressive Asian American community work in Chinatown and Japantown and citywide. And then I also had worked, I was a director of a number of other progressive community organizations. The Bay Area Environmental Health Collaborative, which is a regional environmental health and justice coalition in the Bay Area dealing with disproportionate pollution impacts on working class communities of color in the Bay Area. I was a director of the Northern California Citizenship Project, which is a regional immigrant citizenship and voter engagement program. And then eventually I helped found and was the director of Jobs with Justice San Francisco, which is a coalition of progressive unions and community groups. And we worked on campaigns to raise the minimum wage and create the first paid sick leave law in the country here in San Francisco, and other things. So that was kind of the background that led me 4 years ago to have the opportunity to run and win the campaign to be elected to the Board of Supervisors representing District 4 in the Sunset District. So and it's been a great honor for me and to be able to build off of my decades of work as a progressive community and labor organizer and kind of bring that into my work representing the Sunset District on the Board of Supervisors this first 4 years. And it has been a challenging time, right, with the pandemic and with so many other challenging issues we're dealing with in the city, homelessness, the drug addiction, behavioral health crisis, in our city and our streets, and the ongoing housing affordability challenges, and then also, with the increased focus on police brutality, with the George Floyd killing, and the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, and then even more recently, over the last few years, the rise in anti-Asian violence and hate, and the Stop AAPI hate movement. So it's been a pretty tumultuous 4 years in my first term, hey Ben. But yeah, it's been a great honor, representing this district. That I moved here with my wife 16 years ago when my daughter Leanne was a baby, and she's now a senior in high school. As Katie, you mentioned, the Sunset District's, really unique neighborhood community, and I think we moved here because of the strong family. It's such a great neighborhood for families and to raise a kid in, and there's good schools, really access to amazing parks with Golden Gate Park and Ocean Beach and Stern Grove surrounding us, and I think for us, also just the large and vibrant Chinese and Asian American community here in the Sunset. So that's why we ended up moving here, to raise Leanne and our family. So feel very privileged actually to be able to have been able to do that and stay in the Sunset in San Francisco during this time when so many of my friends and even family members, have been pushed out of the city.